The Mirage of the Maverick. The sun beat down mercilessly on the parched earth of Redemption, New Mexico territory. Dust devils danced in the distance, and the only sound was the mournful creak of the windmill. It was a town where time seemed to have stopped, a place where the past clung to the present like a stubborn ghost. Into this desolate landscape rode a lone figure, a silhouette against the blinding sun. He wore a wide-brimmed Stetson that concealed his face, and his spurs jingled with each stride of his horse. The townsfolk watched from behind their windows, their curiosity piqued. Who was this stranger, and what business did he have in their forgotten corner of the world? The newcomer dismounted in front of the saloon, the only establishment that showed any sign of life. The swinging doors announced his arrival with a mournful groan. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of stale beer and cheap tobacco. A handful of patrons nursed their drinks, their eyes following the stranger as he approached the bar. "Whiskey," he said, his voice a low growl. The bartender, a grizzled old-timer named Jed, poured him a shot. The stranger downed it in one gulp, then slammed the empty glass on the counter. "Name's Maverick," he said. The name echoed through the saloon, sending a shiver down the spines of the patrons. Maverick! The gunslinger whose reputation preceded him like a dust storm. The man who could draw faster than a rattlesnake's strike. News of the Maverick's arrival reached the ears of Sheriff Eli Blackwood. Eli was a man of few words, but his steely gaze spoke volumes. He had seen his share of drifters and fast talkers, men all hat and no cattle. He suspected the Maverick was no different. Eli found the Maverick leaning against the hitching post outside the saloon, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The smoke curled upwards, forming ephemeral patterns in the still air. "Welcome to Redemption, Maverick," Eli said. "What brings you to our humble town?" The Maverick shrugged. "Just passing through," he said. "Heard you folks could use a little excitement." Eli's eyes narrowed. "We have all the excitement we need," he said. "This town ain't big enough for the both of us." The Maverick chuckled. "We'll see about that, Sheriff," he said. As the days turned into weeks, the Maverick became a fixture in Redemption. He spent his days drinking in the saloon, gambling at the poker table, and charming the ladies. The townsfolk were drawn to his enigmatic aura, his air of danger and mystery. Even young Deputy Hank Two-Gun Johnson, eager to prove himself, fell under the Maverick's spell. But Eli remained wary. He sensed a darkness lurking beneath the Maverick's charismatic facade. There was something about the gunslinger that didn't add up, something that kept Eli on edge. One night, a gunshot shattered the silence of Redemption. Eli rushed to the saloon, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside, he found a man lying on the floor, a pool of blood spreading around him. The Maverick stood over the body, his smoking gun in his hand. "Self-defense," the Maverick said, his voice cold and emotionless. Eli wasn't convinced. He had seen the look in the Maverick's eyes, the glint of satisfaction. This wasn't self-defense. It was cold-blooded murder. The killing sparked a wave of fear and paranoia in Redemption. The townsfolk, once enamored with the Maverick, now saw him for what he truly was, a predator. Eli knew he had to act before the town tore itself apart. He confronted the Maverick in the saloon, the two men standing face to face, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. The air crackled with tension. "You're not welcome here, Maverick," Eli said. "Get out of my town." The Maverick smiled, a cruel, mocking smile. "Make me," he said. The saloon fell silent. The patrons held their breath, their eyes darting between the two men. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall, marking the passage of time towards an inevitable showdown. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the dusty streets of Redemption. Eli and the Maverick stood at opposite ends of the main street, their guns holstered at their sides. The townsfolk watched from the safety of their homes, their hearts pounding in their chests. The air was thick with anticipation. A tumbleweed rolled across the street, a lonely harbinger of the impending violence. The Maverick's hand twitched towards his gun. Eli's eyes narrowed. And then, the silence was shattered by the deafening roar of gunshots. The echoes of the gunshots reverberated through the desolate streets, mingling with the gasps of the hidden onlookers. A cloud of smoke hung in the air, obscuring the figures of the two men. As it cleared, the Maverick stood tall, his gun still smoking. Eli lay on the ground, a dark stain spreading across his chest. A collective gasp escaped the townsfolk. Their sheriff, their protector, was dead. A sense of despair washed over redemption. The Maverick had won. Or had he? From the corner of his eye, the Maverick saw a flicker of movement. He turned, his gun raised, only to find himself staring down the barrel of Hank's revolver. The young deputy's hand trembled, but his resolve was unwavering. "You killed the sheriff," Hank said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're not getting away with this." The Maverick smirked. "You think you can stop me, boy?" Hank's finger tightened on the trigger. "I have to try," he said. Another shot rang out. This time, it was the Maverick who fell. He clutched his chest, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked at Hank, then at Eli's lifeless body. A bitter smile twisted his lips. "All hat, and no cattle," he whispered, before collapsing onto the dusty ground. If you are enjoying adventures in the Old West, hit the subscribe button for future posts.